Okay, I have, ooh, I wanted your papers. What did I do with them?
Ooh, questions. I forgot questions. Questions.
Oh, are you giving me your questions, Ethan?
Questions.
Then I will just use your questions for my questions. Thank you. Okay. This week, we fired up the Punic Wars. Punic is a very funny word. And I told you that last week, I think I told you, that Punis is the Latin name for Carthaginian, for Phoenician. So, please enlighten me. Did we add Carthage to your maps?
I think so.
No.
I think, yeah.
Would you look? It should be the big Roman Empire map, and just make sure.
I mean, not officially. I did it anyway.
Okay, awesome. I just couldn't remember if we had it out and I said put it on there, but do we have Carthage on our maps?
Let me see.
It should be right here in North Africa.
Hey, Ethan.
The Roman. Oh, this is
And the place where Africa sticks up.
Hey, Ethan.
What?
Do the harsh
So
voice.
look for a map that says
What?
Roman Empire. It should have the entire Mediterranean.
Why do I have nothing on here?
Oh man.
Maybe we haven't put much on this particular map.
Oh.
But you know what? You should, first of all, you should put Rome on this map,
it was a race.
because Rome is important, right? Because we're talking about Rome for an entire semester. And Rome is in Italy, obviously. Italy is the country that sticks out. It looks like a boot. And about, on the western side, about, I don't know, a third of the way up, halfway up, put Rome. There should be, I don't know how much detail there is. Rome is on a river, obviously, because Horatius held the bridge over the river. So put Rome on your maps there. And after you put Rome on, you can follow the boot of Italy and the toe and Sicily and go over to Africa, where there's a place that juts out in Africa, and that's where Carthage is. Not very far away, in fact. If I see, let's see, okay, so this far, okay, about 300 miles. So less than the length of Illinois is how far apart they are straight across. Yes?
We put Carthage on the Italy map, but not the Rome one.
Oh, I thought that we put it on there sometime.
Italy map.
Yeah, because there's
Oh.
a little bit of
We did.
Africa.
I did.
That's why there's nothing on here.
Thank you. I'm not crazy that we did talk about Carthage.
There it is, yeah.
By the way, since you're all Latin students, this is always interesting. What do we call a piece of land that juts out and has water on three sides?
Peninsula.
A peninsula. Do you know why?
No.
Okay, you know that insula means island.
Nope.
Nope.
Yes.
You haven't learned insula?
Yes, I have.
I've heard of the word, but that was back in.
Oh,
sixth
I
grade.
knew that, but
sorry.
you guys.
What, okay, so you're
Ethan.
doing the form series.
Ethan.
You're doing first form, second form?
Yeah.
Ethan.
Gosh, I could
No,
have sworn
no,
that was,
no,
okay,
do the
never
forms.
mind. You're just gonna have to take my word for it that insula means island.
Trust me.
Pine means almost.
Don't know that one
A,
either.
no, that one isn't.
Oh.
Peninsula, it's almost an island. If you just cut across one side, it would be an island. It's
Wow.
almost an island.
It's almost
Isn't
an
that
island.
fun?
That's
Don't you love that?
Almost an island.
You don't look like you love it, but some of you are smiling, some of you are like,
Way to go, Marissa.
oh, here she goes again. Okay,
I think it's funny.
almost nice. Okay, so, let me grab Ethan's questions.
Yay.
All right, so I already answered question 1 for you. Where did the Carthaginians originally come from?
Tyre.
Tyre, Phoenicia.
Yeah.
And that's why I told you Punis means Phoenician, so they call it the Punic Wars, because they're fighting against Phoenician people. So, Dorothy Mills tells you a little bit of a story. I'm going to elaborate on it for you. There is a famous poem, you know we talked about the Iliad, which is the story of the fall of Troy, and the Odyssey, which is the story of Odysseus coming home. There's a Roman poem called the Aeneid, and it is the story, you do not have to write this down, of a famous Trojan hero named Aeneas. He was like a cousin of King Priam, a cousin of the royal family. And he was told he wasn't going to die in the fall of Troy because the gods had a special plan for him. This is in the Iliad, and that's all it is. So later, many, like 1,000, 1,500 years later, a Roman poet named Virgil took this and ran with it. And he said, I want to get some sort of highfalutin, great epic poem about Rome. Because Troy's got one, we should have one too. So he wrote a poem called the Aeneid. Here's the story. Aeneas gets up the night that the guys climb out of the horse, you know, and everything's in flames, and he tries to fight a little bit, then he goes home and he checks on his family, and then he goes tries to fight. Anyway, finally, his mother happens to be Venus, Aphrodite, and she comes to him and says, you need to skedaddle. She doesn't use the word skedaddle, but that's the general idea. And get your family and hightail it out of here because the gods have a plan for you. Troy is not going to end here. You're going to carry the torch of Troy, metaphorically, and you're going to start a new city that's going to rule the world. Great. So Aeneas, unfortunately, his wife dies, but he famously takes his aging, elderly dad on his back,
Oh, yeah.
and he leads his little son by the hand, and they get out of Troy, and it's all burning down, everybody's dying, and they regroup out on a hill, and they say, okay, let's go somewhere else, because this is not a good place to stay. But unfortunately, the gods are a little mum about where this new city is supposed to be. That would have been nice information.
Mm-hmm.
So they spend some time trying various places. And up around here in Thrace, and they stop, and they meet some other refugees from the Trojan War, and they say, oh, let's live with you. And the gods say, nope, you can't live here. This is not the place. So anyway, they roam around, and they finally end up, from a storm, washed up at Carthage. Yes?
This kind of reminds me a little bit about Abraham.
Yes. Yes, that's good. Called out of a place to go to a place he does not know.
Of course, Abraham's city was not burning down.
It was not burning down.
And
But in a sense it was because, I mean, they were all idol worshippers.
Mhm.
Like it was a ticking time bomb. I mean, it's going to be like hundreds of years after Abraham leaves before it finally falls apart. But that's a very good connection. They wash up at Carthage, and Carthage is being built at this time by a Phoenician, a Tyrian princess named Dido. Ladies, if anybody here has a daughter
Sounds
ever,
like-
you can
sounds
consider
like
Dido as a name.
Jezebel. I don't know. It just sounds like a Jezebel
Okay,
figure.
well, listen, just wait. I mean, you got some of the story in the Dorothy Mills book. Dido is very helpful. She listens to their sad tale and says, oh yes, we can help you. We can re-provision your ships, whatever you need. Meanwhile, just take a load off, have some dinner, get some sleep, take a shower, you know, just relax. And so they get a little too relaxed. And Aeneas starts to have a thing for Dido, but Dido has way more of a thing for Aeneas. Back, she had run away from Tyre because her brother had killed her husband.
Ugh.
I don't remember why.
oh dear.
Why do people do these things? And she was afraid of her brother. She ran away and she swore undying devotion to her dead husband. I will never love another man. I will always love you. And then Aeneas shows up. Hello. And her sister says, you know, this guy, he's a good looking guy. And he's strong. All these other kings around here, they keep pressuring you to marry them. Hook up with Aeneas, and then you're safe. Yeah. So
Yeah.
they have a thing going on, and meanwhile, all Aeneas's guys are kind of looking at each other, saying, "What's the deal? Are we just going to stay here? Are we going to build her city?" And finally, the gods have to intervene again, and they come and they say, "Aeneas, cut it out. you have a job. You have a job. And in the poem, he's often called pious Aeneas. And we usually use that term to mean like very religious or godly, but it meant do your duty. Aeneas is one who does his duty, and his duty is to found a new place. So he makes the unfortunate decision of not telling Dido that he's leaving. He probably could have gone and said, "Hon, I'm sorry, but the gods have told me to leave."
Wow.
But he doesn't. He just starts secretly, like, loading his ships and getting everything ready. But she's not dumb. And so she sees it, and she calls him, and like, "Well, I have to leave. I'm sorry." He's like, "What do you mean? You can't leave me." And there's an ugly scene in which she yells out after Aeneas, find the place, what Dorothy Mills recounts. I need to start using bookmarks. Okay. Almost there. Okay. "This heritage be yours, no truce or trust twixt theirs and ours." No truce or trust between Aeneas's descendants and the Carthaginians. No union or accord. Arise, unknown avenger, from our dust, with fire and steel upon the Dardan horde, mete out the measure of their crimes' reward. Today, tomorrow, for eternity, fight, oft as ye are able, sword with sword, shore with opposing shore, and sea with sea. Fight, Tyrians, all that are, and all that e'er shall be. We fight you forever. We hate you and yours forever. And she calls on the avenger to rise up and, in biblical language, smite the Aeneans, and his descendants. Now, Virgil's writing this 150 years, 200 years after the Punic Wars. All right? But he phrases it, it's very well done. He phrases it in such a way that the Punic Wars are the fulfillment of Dido's curse. All right? And she says, "Arise, avenger," which is going to be the guy you're going to read about this coming week, Hannibal. All right?
Wow,
He's the avenger who's going to come whoop the Romans.
True.
So Aeneas ends up, I'm going to finish the tale, Aeneas ends up leaving there and settling near Rome, and Romulus and Remus are Aeneas's descendants. All right, Aeneas founds a town named Alba Longa, and his family lives there for several hundred years, and then, they send Romulus and Remus out, and the part that you read earlier in the book.
Where he slays his brother.
Yes, another ugly episode.
What's wrong with these ancient people? They
So,
just like killing each other.
what? This is the next question. Yeah. So, what brought Rome and Carthage into conflict? In general, this is kind of an open-ended question. There's more than one way to answer it. Alex, what do you think?
I put down a skirmish on Sicily, including Carthaginian mercenaries.
Okay. So and this kind of answers the next question too. Sicily was the main point, but there's something else you could have said for that question. Carthage. Look at the map here, and do you see how Sicily and Carthage are so close together, and that this kind of makes its own little mini sea here, with just a little strait in between. Carthage ruled that. Carthage, and the second half of that question was, how were the civilizations different? Did anyone catch? Dorothy Mills described what Romans cared about, Ethan, and what did Carthage
The Romans
care
were
about?
more practical people. They loved their country, and they would definitely fight for the country. And it's the opposite for Carthage. The Carthaginians, their soldiers were basically all like mercenaries who were paid to do it,
Okay.
and didn't really care. They were thieves and criminals.
And that might be a little harsh, although to some extent, yes. I mean, there were Carthaginian, they did hire, it talked about the Numidian soldiers that they would hire. But Carthage is a trading city. They care about money, right? So that if you got money, you can hire mercenaries,
Exactly.
right? And you don't care necessarily what their moral fiber is, if they're good with a weapon. Carthage was all about making the money, and they had trading posts all around this area. That was kind of their, it was like a gang war, you know, like this was their turf. And Rome came in, and as long as Rome was in Italy, messing around and fighting all these Italian tribes, like who cares? Do whatever you want to in Italy. But when you start venturing out of Italy and trying to take, you know, some of our turf, we're going to strike back. And so, yeah, so in Sicily, unfortunately, some undesirables came and settled in Sicily. And the king of Syracuse, which was the major city in Sicily, didn't want them there. They were troublemakers. And he has two people he can call. You can call the Romans or you can call the Carthaginians to help you out. And he chose the Romans. When the Romans got there, the Carthaginians were there anyway, so they didn't want to butt out. And this dispute over just some undesirable people settling there turned into Rome versus Carthage. And it was sort of not just who's going to control Sicily, but who's going to control this, right? Does that make sense? Because it, like I said, Rome, up to this point, they're fighting all up and down Italy, but they're staying in Italy. When they cross, it's not very much water, but when they cross the water, they're venturing out of Italy. They're venturing into someone else's territory. Who settled in Sicily long ago? What?
Greeks.
Greeks. These were Greek cities. And they were messing where they didn't belong as far as the Carthaginians were concerned. So, war breaks out. Running back and forth. Maybe I should just put it here in front of me. Okay, I asked you, what did the Romans need to successfully fight Carthage? And how did they learn to build what they needed? Okay.
They needed a navy, and for many years the Carthaginians bested them at sea because they only had tiny trading ships and no warships. However, one day a Carthaginian warship washed up, and the Romans, they copied off of that ship and they made a fleet.
They copied off of it.
They did.
I know,
but it's funny.
genius, though.
It's funny.
What wasn't it? Something like 200 ships in 100 days?
Yeah, they made tons of ships really fast.
That is
They
crazy.
just cranked them out.
And it's hilarious because the Romans, they aren't seafaring people. So they literally had like training benches where the soldiers would learn to row. Because they had no
They're
idea how to
training.
row. They
Yeah.
had never been on a ship.
And they had an idea, and Dorothy Mills doesn't talk about this. It's more than just rowing the ship and making sure it doesn't sink. There's an art to naval warfare, right? If you're going to ram other people's ships, you've got to maneuver well. And the Romans said, well, we don't care about that. We don't want to learn to do that. All we need to do is get close enough to them to jump on their boat, and then it's like we're both on land. And we're excellent on land. We can mow them down if we can just get on their boats. So they sort of invented this whole get up close to their ship and jump on, like Pirates of the Caribbean. You know, they're all swinging across
Oh my
ship to ship.
goodness.
Yeah, and they would jump on their ship and then just, this is me with a sword.
Yeah.
Just in case you wonder what that is. It's me with a sword.
I take one.
Obviously, I wouldn't do very well. Not a good technique. Yeah, they cranked out a navy, but things initially didn't go so well for Rome. By the way, I wanted to put this on our timelines.
Uh-oh.
Grab your timeline.
Ah, different.
Grab the one that has 500 BC at the top.
Ooh.
I know, we're moving on up.
That's 2000 BC. Oops.
And it's got 1 or whatever you put, not 0, 1 BC, 1 AD, whatever.
1 BC.
And towards the bottom, it's a period of time, so we're not going to necessarily put it in one place, but 264 to 241, First Punic War. everybody see, can you guys see that in the back? Do you need me to say it again? Are we good? Are you good? Okay. So things were up and down during the war, but at one point, a general named Regulus, by the way, they had decided to invade Africa at this point, and a general named Regulus got attacked, a Roman general. He was already tired. His men were hungry. You know, it was not a good time to fight, and he lost badly. And the Carthaginians told him to go home and negotiate a peace treaty, negotiate a truce. Part of the truce was going to be exchange of prisoners, right? We've got Romans, you've got Carthaginians, we'll trade, and then we'll make truce terms. But the truce terms were not very favorable to Rome. And I asked you, how did the consul Regulus behave nobly? Anyone other than Alex?
Love history.
I'm not, that's not an insult. I just want to, Hannah wants to answer.
He went back there when they said no and decided to die instead of stay there.
He made a promise to the Carthaginians that he would come back if the treaty negotiations failed. Did he have to keep the promise? No, what are they going to do? But he went home, and not only did the peace negotiations fail, but he told them not to take the deal. He actually told them, this isn't good for Rome. This is not a good deal. Don't take the deal. I know. And then he said, now I'm going back. And they said, Regulus, don't go back. They're going to kill you. He's like, yeah, I know. But I made a promise. I made a promise. Remember we talked pious Aeneas, and it meant he does his duty. That was his duty. He made a promise. And I don't care if I promised my enemy. I made a promise. It will make Romans look bad if we break our promises.
Well, why don't you go back with the army?
I don't know.
Oh,
I guess he didn't promise.
That would be,
I guess he didn't promise not to do that. However, I think they might have noticed and gotten ready. Also, much of their army had gotten killed in the battle in which they lost. Anyway, he went back and they executed him. And eventually the war wound to an end, however. Rome got the upper hand and they did not have to take the unfavorable peace terms. But Carthage was still there. Towards the end of the First Punic War, the Carthaginians had a general with the funny name of Hamilcar Barca. I think it's fun to say Hamilcar Barca. And he was really a very, very fine military mind. But he lost. And he didn't take losing very well. And at the time, he had a little son. His son's like 9 years old. And he traveled with him often to the military camps. You just like take your son to work day, except he's going to the military camp. And they spent a lot of time, since Carthage had lots of settlements in Spain and ran a good lot of Spain. He happened to be in Spain at the time that everything fell apart. And he took his little son and he sat down with him and looked him in the eyes and he said, you have to swear on all our gods to hate Rome forever for the rest of your life. Well, so he did. And his name was Hannibal. His little son's name was Hannibal. And he swore to his dad when he was a little boy that he would never, ever, ever stop hating the Romans. And that he would do everything within his power to bring the Romans down. Seems like a mean thing to do to a child. But so this week you are going to read about that little boy when he grew up. And he indeed is going to bring the fight to Rome. And it's going to last for decades. Yes.
Oh, I already read it.
Well, don't spoil anything for people. Anyone other than Alex, you probably knew this before, but what is Hannibal famous for accomplishing? Does anybody know his claim to fame when we think of him is?
Alex.
Sophie knows.
No.
Sophie's being outed. Oh,
No.
oh.
It comes up a bit in Henley Latin, just as much.
Oh, okay, yes,
All the time.
yes, okay. Elephants. Do you remember Pyrrhus and his elephants?
Oh.
No, the fact, what if you've never seen an elephant before? And you were out and you just,
I'm gonna hurt you someday.
it's like the Oliphants, and, you know,
Take the shirt.
Oh,
Get the paper.
can we,
There.
calm down.
Wait,
Yeah.
touch the paper.
You were trying to steal it.
I did touch it though. If I did that for anything.
Everybody is hyped up.
Quintus Fabius Maximus.
All right, so finish chapter 9 this next week. We are going to
War
read
is
about, it is long.
He was
Yeah, it's a long reading. You guys are tough though. And also it's interesting. I mean, I think it's lively and interesting. But there was no way to break it up because it was just one huge section about the Second Punic War. And then you're going to read about the Third Punic War, but the Third Punic War isn't much of a war, quite frankly.
Just a little fight.
But my favorite story about the Punic Wars comes with the Third Punic War, and I can't wait to talk about it, but I'll just hold on to it right now. We need to remember, I think we forgot to do this last week, our little mnemonic device, our little acronym for the 7 Hills of Rome.
Oh yeah.
Very awkward,
Very awkward elephants.
quiet elephants.
Quiet elephants
Play
crazy chess.
Crazy chess, okay. Okay, the Viminal, the Aventine, the Quirinal, the Esquiline, the Palatine, the Scelian, the Capitoline. One more time.
Starting again.
One more time. The Viminal, the Aventine, the Quirinal, the Esquiline, the Palatine, the Scelian, the Capitoline.
It helped.
I think I have a poem about Hannibal. I get to read the poem
Oh,
about
dear.
Hannibal.
Oh yeah.
How about you do it this week?
No, because it
We
might
do learn
ruin
about
something.
Hannibal.
All right, we are going to move on to Josephus. We're kind of going to go through our history part a little more quickly because I have a long writing thing I want us to do together. We spend a lot of time on our writing today. But did anybody find the Josephus reading kind of complicated with a lot of information and a lot of people's
Yeah.
names? Oh my
Yes.
goodness, yes. I don't feel like you're supposed to keep track of all those names, okay? Can I just make you feel at ease? There's
No.
two
Thank you.
there's two main things that I want you to get from the reading. Thing number one. What does it seem like is happening in Israel between the time of Alexander the Great on, or between that and the Romans taking over? Like, what does there seem to be a lot of in general? This is a broad, big picture. Conquering. Yes, that's exactly. Lots of fighting. Somebody's always fighting, and they're always fighting there. Do you remember? Okay, over here. Do you remember that I told you that when people want to go back and forth here, you don't just cut across the desert because you will die, unless you're some nomad guy with his camels and you know where all the oases are. When you travel, you follow the water, right? The rivers, and then along the Mediterranean, which makes what shape?
Crescent.
A crescent, the Fertile Crescent, exactly. So look where Israel is, and look where the passage of people going back and forth is. They're always going through Israel. Does that make sense? All right. It's like it's on the interstate. It's an interstate city. Add that to the idea that when Alexander died, remember, he did, I was reading some more, he did have a wife and a son, a baby son, but his son didn't, he lasted about 12 years and then because they didn't want an heir. If you want to be in charge, you don't want Alexander to have an heir.
Child?
I don't know, I think there was poison involved.
Oh.
Seemed to be a lot of poison involved. But basically, several of Alexander's generals snatched up what they could get. four of the most powerful ones kind of got together. You take this, I'll take that, like they're dividing up a cake. And a man named Ptolemy got Egypt. That's why we have all these kings named Ptolemy. And did you notice there kept being Cleopatras in your reading?
Mm-hmm.
There was more than one Cleopatra.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't always the same one. That was just a Greek name in Egypt. Cleopatra was a Greek lady. She was not an Egyptian lady. And her brothers, practically all of them named Ptolemy. And then over here you have the Seleucids. They're owning this part. And you see how these are coming into conflict right here in Israel? And that's what you read about. Israel is in the crossfire of two enormous empires always fighting and trying to expand. So this one takes over, and then the other one comes back and takes over. And it goes back and forth. The most, I guess, notable thing that happened during this time period, several hundred years, is when the Seleucid dynasty took over, they had a bunch of kings named Antiochus. And one of them, Antiochus IV, was an exceptionally bad egg. He was just a vicious man. And he took over Israel, and it wasn't enough to take over and push the Ptolemies out. He decided to punish the Israelites, punish the Jews exceedingly for disagreeing with his rule. But he also set up images and burnt pagan sacrifices at the temple in Jerusalem. And I feel like you can imagine like how the Jews would feel about that. No. Disgusted. Horrified. And so there was a priestly family in Jerusalem, and one of the sons of this high priest was named Judas. And they gave him a nickname, Maccabeus, which means the hammer. There's another, next year when we do the Middle Ages, are you thinking of another, the hammer? Charles the Hammer, Charles Martel. Well, Judas got to be the hammer too, Judas Maccabeus. And he led basically a freedom fighting force, a rebel force against the overlords. And in two books, 1st and 2nd Maccabees, there's a description of this, and I just wanted to read to you. Describes Antiochus. I'm going to skip around a little bit. Talks about Alexander, and then giving his kingdom to his officers. There sprang from these a sinful offshoot, Antiochus Epiphanes, son of King Antiochus, once a hostage at Rome. He became king in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks. In those days there appeared in Israel transgressors of the law, who seduced many, saying, "Let us go and make a covenant with the Gentiles all around us. Since we separated from them, many evils have come upon us." In other words, we have Israelites saying, hey, let's make alliances with the people around us. You know, in the Old Testament, this is always a bad idea. The proposal was agreeable, so they formed an alliance. It says they disguised their circumcision and abandoned the Holy Covenant. They allied themselves with the Gentiles and sold themselves to wrongdoing. When his kingdom seemed secure, Antiochus undertook to become king of the land of Egypt and to rule over both kingdoms, right? He's always fighting with Egypt. He invaded Egypt with a strong force, with chariots, elephants, and cavalry, and with a large fleet, to make war on Ptolemy, king of Egypt. Ptolemy was frightened at his presence and fled, and many were wounded and fell dead. The fortified cities of the land of Egypt were captured, and Antiochus plundered the land of Egypt. After Antiochus had defeated Egypt, he returned and went up against Israel and against Jerusalem with a strong force. He insolently entered the sanctuary and took away the golden altar, the lampstand for the light, and all its utensils, the offering table, the cups and bowls, the golden censers, and the curtain. Okay, and it goes on to say how he stripped all the gold off. Taking all this, he went back to his own country. He shed much blood and spoke with great arrogance. Okay, and he orders, things like pig sacrifices in the temple. You know, the Jews, pigs were an unclean animal. God had told them that was one of the animals they are not to touch, to eat. It was awful. So Judas Maccabeus rises up in response to things like this. There's a famous story, this is in 2 Maccabees, and of a mother and her 7 sons. It says, it also happened that 7 brothers with their mother were arrested and tortured with whips and scourges by the king to force them to eat pork in violation of God's law. One of the brothers, speaking for the others, said, "What do you expect to learn by questioning us? We are ready to die rather than transgress the laws of our ancestors." At that, the king in a fury gave orders to have pans and cauldrons heated. That's never a good sign. They were quickly heated, and he gave the order to cut out the tongue of the one who had spoken for the others, to scalp him and cut off his hands and feet, while the rest of his brothers and his mother looked on. When he was completely maimed, but still breathing, the king ordered them to carry him to the fire and fry him.
Ugh.
As a cloud of smoke spread from the pan, the brothers and their mother encouraged one another to die nobly, with these words, "The Lord God is looking on and truly has compassion on us," as Moses declared in his song, when he openly bore witness, saying, "And God will have compassion on his servants." Okay, this goes on and on. Long story short, kills all 7 brothers in front of their mother, then kills the mother. All right, this sort of atrocity brought on disgust, people ready to die to drive out the overlords. Yes.
What book of the Bible is that?
This is in the Catholic Bible. So Protestant Bibles don't have quite the same books, and so 1st and 2nd Maccabees are what in the Protestant world we call apocryphal books. Catholics call them deuterocanonical books, like a secondary canon, and they were part of the Bible up until the Reformation. And so it's a very interesting topic that I would love to. If we have time at the end, you can go back to that. So for Protestant Bibles, they're not in there. And in Catholic Bibles, it's referred to as the Apocrypha. But if you want to look, it'd be online free. Just look up 1st and 2nd Maccabees, because it's very fascinating. So Judas Maccabeus rises up and gets a force, and trying to see what I was marking, because my little thing could be both sides. I'm going to stop there. And he drives them out. They have a lot of really great victories, but unfortunately, as you read, the Maccabeus family kind of deteriorates. You get priests, because they were a priestly family, that are basically taking bribes. They're making alliances with the non-Jewish people again, and it kind of falls apart until you read all the way up to the Romans get involved, right? Pompey. You read about Pompey. Were you guys familiar? Do you know who Pompey is? You're going to meet Pompey again. But Pompey was Julius Caesar's major rival. All right. Just store Pompey away, because we're all the way up to the 1st century before Jesus. Store that away, because Pompey's going to come back. And when he does, I will remind you, remember the Pompey guy that was trying to calm things down in Israel? And part of the calming down was to give them a king. And the king was named Herod. There are a bunch of Herods, right? And I should have given you this before you read, but better late than never, as they say. What did I do with it? Oh, here they are. I just laid them in front of me. I got this out of my NIV study Bible. It is a chart of the Herods. It's actually very helpful. And so it has 1st generation, 2nd generation, 3rd generation, 4th, and it'll say, this is the guy who cut off John the Baptist's head. This is a guy who's not mentioned in the Bible. And it tells you, it's a flow chart for the Herod family. Don't worry about it. Just know that a couple of things. Herod was put in charge by the Romans. That's enough reason to hate him right there, as far as the Jews are concerned. Herod was not Jewish. He came from an outside family. He married a Jewish lady, and many of his descendants were half Jewish. But you know how they feel about the Samaritans, right? Those half-breed, half-Jew. This is one of the reasons why they hated Herod. They also hated Herod because he was just rotten. This is the first Herod. This would be the one who tried to execute Jesus by killing all the baby boys in Bethlehem.
Oh, disgusting.
Yeah.
Oh, that
And
guy.
you read some stories about him in this book that confirm his nasty character. The Emperor Augustus, the first emperor, once was supposed to have said, "It is safer to be Herod's pig than his son," because they don't eat pigs. But if you're Herod's son, you're probably going to get executed. Nasty. Now, if I drop these here, are we going to have a skirmish?
No.
Not if-
Okay.
Not unless
All right.
Kyle tries to steal it.
May I use the restroom?
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There you go. So hopefully this is helpful. You might want to just fold this up and stick it in your Bible, because when you read the book of Acts, when you read the Gospels, and especially when you read the book of Acts, it's really helpful. They mentioned some of them being tetrarchs, you might remember. So Herod the Great, he's the baby Jesus king. He died when Jesus was very young because they ran off to Egypt to escape him. And then an angel came to Joseph and said, "He's dead, you can go back." And we don't know, I'm assuming Jesus was probably not 5 years old yet. He was probably a toddler. He died, but then because there was so much unrest in Israel, they made 4 of his sons tetrarchs. So tetra means 4. So they made 4 rulers over various areas, hoping that they would, if one person is in charge, they kind of do whatever they want. But if you've got 3 people breathing down your neck and watching you, maybe they'll keep you in check and keep you from causing problems. This is going to go on until the Romans completely destroy Jerusalem, which is what we're going to read about for the next 2 weeks. From here on out, first, more about Herod before I go and here on out. Herod was crummy, morally, and a bad ruler, but he did do one grand thing for Jerusalem. He rebuilt the temple. The temple had been kind of not very grand since Ezra and Nehemiah, since they came back from their exile in Babylon and Persia. And he spruced it up, but good. It was gorgeous. He spent decades working on the temple. And this would have been the temple that Jesus visited. Sometimes they call it Herod's temple. And I have, believe it or not, I don't know if I'm supposed to have it, this ugly thing, which is actually a roof tile off of Herod's palace. My dad went to Israel in the late 80s. He went twice. And he went with an archaeologist guide. And I don't know that he was supposed to pick this up off the ground and bring it home. So don't sick like antiquities police on me for having this. But you can see how it was rectangular. I mean, you can see it's 2,000 years old. That's why it's so beat up. And it was a shingle. It's a roof tile off Herod's palace. I know. And so I'm going to pass it around because who doesn't want to handle a 2,000-year-old hunk of clay?
Who wouldn't pick that
Who
up?
wouldn't pick that up? Well, they have rules about those things. So maybe the rules weren't as. And my dad is not living anymore, so I can't call him and say, "Dad, did you steal that roof tile?" He passed on. But you can kind of see. It's interesting. You can see stuff. If you look on the edges, you see things that look like rocks or discolorations. And in the ancient world, when you made things with clay, you mix things into the clay to make it stronger. One of my students said like rebar. I'm like, yeah, kind of like rebar. So sometimes they put crushed up rock. Sometimes they put crushed up limestone, like oyster shells, clam shells if you live near the sea. Remember, the Israelites were mixing straw into the clay? Remember, but they had to make bricks without straw because the Pharaoh got angry with them and like, why are they putting straw in the clay? Because it would decompose and gum up and it would hold the clay together better. So you can kind of see layers of stuff in it. Anyway, just pass it around. Don't like
Shatter
shatter it. It's pretty. I'm cool with everybody handling it.
Beautiful.
So while you wait for the wonderful grand old piece of clay to come to you, go ahead and get a piece of paper out for our writing. Because we're going to make an outline together. And I'm also going to be passing something out to you as you.
Look. So like actually came off of Herod's palace.
Yes, apparently just on the ground in the ruins around, but it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Some people get a t-shirt in their hair.
I'm taking that.
I did.
Give it back. Thank you.
And I'm very happy.
I know that analyze this way.
Stained pretty ugly.
A piece chipped off.
Accidentally.
That's okay, but you
I'll
can just
take it.
save it forever. Your little
Yeah.
chunk. It crumbles around the edges. It's okay. All right. You can we're going to use multiple pieces of paper. If you've got a spiral notebook, it's fine. But if you have any loose leaf paper, you might want to use it for this. But don't worry if you don't. Okay, I am going to, for EJ and Jacob, I am going to move this so that they can really see the board. Okay. And while you are waiting for your clay tile to come to you, I would like you to make 2 outlines that both look like this.
Oh dear, we're doing food.
We are.
Let's go.
Because, why not? All right, and then I want you to make another one that looks exactly like it.
Uh-oh.
Why is everybody saying uh-oh?
I don't know. Why are we so worried about
I
this?
said uh-oh.
This isn't bad.
No, of course it's not
Oh,
bad.
it's not bad. What are you talking about? Not possible.
Our title is Roman Dining.
Sorry.
Because it's fun, like we read all these wars and battles and stuff, but they're people and they wear clothes and interesting jewelry and they eat stuff and it's fun.
Do they eat stuff?
Of course, well, they'd be dead if they'd be dead. They are dead. Maybe they didn't
Why
eat.
eat rocks,
I don't know what history books you're reading. Okay,
That's what birds
source
do. 1,
source 2. I'm going to lose my glasses here.
Because I don't know why.
Hey, we are just starting. And here's the thing we're going to outline. We're all writing this on a piece of
Roman
paper.
dining.
Two columns. Oh, you can't, well, it doesn't show up very well. Here, I'm going to. All right, that's pretty good. Okay, are we ready?
Now I am. Yes.
I have given you a paper with 2 pages. 2 pages. The first page, we're passing around a roof tile from Herod's palace that my dad brought back from Israel, probably illegally. Whatever. Okay. 2 pages. Each page has a front and a back. Okay, following me?
Yes.
Page 1, front and back, is source 1. Page 2, front and back, is source 2. Does everybody follow me? The entire first page is source 1. The entire second page is source 2. They're actually from 2 different books.
But, Mrs. Ferguson, there's like 3 pages.
There's 2 pages front and back. Right? Okay? Now, I'm gonna try to, we've got, what, 35 minutes. Okay, we ought to be able to do this. 10:05, right? That's our target time? Okay.
Yeah.
We wrote some reports. You've written a couple of reports for me, and we just consulted one source, one book. All right? What are some good reasons when we're doing research on something to look in more than one book?
It'll tell you different things.
Okay, you might get different information. What else, Kyle?
I had a question about if we're combining the.
Yeah, just don't ask you.
Okay.
At the end, if I haven't answered that question, then you ask that.
Okay.
What is another, so we get different bits of information. What's another good reason to consult more than one source, more than one book? What do you think, Ethan?
Test if it's like fake or not.
Okay, so if I read in 20 different books that the Romans won the Punic Wars,
The Romans.
okay, then it's probably true, all right? But if I read in, 18 books that they did and 2 books that they didn't, well, the 2 that say they didn't are probably pretty suspect. Does that make sense? To confirm what I know to be true. What is another reason to do research out of more than one book? What do you think, Ella?
There's different information.
Well, yeah, Hannah said that. Oh.
Yeah.
When I write a book, okay, let's say I'm writing a report on Illinois. No, I'm sorry, I'm writing a book on Illinois. I'm a grand author. I don't know why I would write.
Who knows?
Okay, so, and I happen to hate farming and the Midwest and Illinois' government. I know, first question is why am I writing this book? But when I do write this book, what sort of things am I going to say about Illinois?
Good things.
Bad things.
Oh, bad things.
Wait, you like Illinois?
No, I just said I hate the Midwest.
Oh,
and
you
I
hate
farming
Illinois.
and
Oh,
government.
never mind. Then you're gonna say some bad things.
I'm gonna have
Point out the bad things.
a bias against it, right?
Yes.
Now, my brother, hypothetically, loves Illinois. And he's also going to write a book on Illinois. But he's going to highlight the glories of the rural life and farming and somehow make our government not seem so bad. I'm sorry, I just forgot we were in Iowa. Oh well, I'm sorry.
Are we in Iowa?
Ditto Iowa, whatever, if you're from Iowa. Do you see how in one case I'm going to say pleasant things, kind things towards my subject? And the other case, I'm going to say nasty things towards my subject. Bias. So if I only read one of those books, how am I going to feel about Illinois?
It's terrible.
Well, I'm going to feel whichever book I picked, right? But if I read them both, I might get a better all-over view. Does that make sense to everybody?
You probably shouldn't live there because it's bad and good things.
Right. So when we just read one book on a subject, we all have a bias. Do you know what I mean by a bias?
Mm-hmm.
Does everybody know? You either are favorably disposed or unfavorably disposed. Even things that seem, I don't know, like Roman dining. I don't know. Some things are fairly neutral. But it's always good to get more than one take on it. So what we're going to do is we're going to practice doing research from more than one source, okay? Because most of the time in your research life, you will not just be consulting one source. So here's what we're going to do. We are writing have I done it, Mike? We are writing 2 paragraphs. And here's how we're going to do it. Our topic is Roman dining. Because didn't you always want to know what the Romans ate? No, you did.
Yes,
See?
I did.
Okay, so I am choosing, actually, you're going to help me on this
Wait
part.
a minute. 2 paragraphs. How?
Just a second. If I told you that we are writing about Roman dining, tell me some things we could write about. Give me some topic ideas. Something that has to do with Roman dining.
Food.
Okay, what kinds of food? You can write this somewhere if you want to, but you don't have to.
We
Kinds
have
of food.
what
else?
wine.
What else could we write about?
How formal they were.
Okay, so dinner parties. Dinner etiquette and dinner parties.
What type of utensils and?
Utensils and dishes. What else could we write about?
Do they have
Drinks.
music?
That might go with kind of food. Alright, okay. I know you're looking at the thing, but I want you to think, use your brains. I mean, I know you're using your brains, but you know what I mean? Ask yourself, what are all the things that have to do with eating? Food preparation could be one.
What are they doing while eating? Are they
Okay,
listening?
well,
or
that
what
could be dinner etiquette and party, what happens during it. Clean up. I don't know.
This is fun.
That's kind of.
Chef.
What they sit on? How high is the
Well,
table?
see,
Food
that might go along with the
preparers.
dinner, food prep. I feel like, can anybody think of anything else that has to do with eating? Kinds of food.
Manners.
Manners.
That's etiquette.
Might go with dinner etiquette. I feel like that covers it, kind of. Now, if I were writing a paper on Roman dining, I wouldn't know. Okay, let me rewind. I didn't start that well. You're going to write 2 paragraphs. How many topics can I pick? 2. I can only pick 2. Because remember, a paragraph is a topic, right? If I'm writing about food preparation, I don't suddenly start talking about dancing girls entertaining you at the feast, because it has nothing to do with food preparation. Now, if I were picking up books, I'd never seen them before, I would probably have to browse through them to see what they talk about. I already know what those papers talk about, and I'm telling you what we're going to choose. We're going to choose kinds of food, and we're going to choose dinner parties. That's what we're going to write about, because that's what our source tells us about. So, here's what you're going to do. Topic 1, kinds of food. Write that by the Roman numeral 1. And by the Roman numeral 2, dinner parties. And you're going to do the same thing on your second outline. Now, here's what I want you guys to do for me. I want you to take the first page. Remember, the first page is front and back. And I want you to tell me anything interesting or important, as you skim over it, that you find about kinds of food the Romans like to eat. Tell me something.
This page mentioned a lot about wine. Apparently the Romans had a lot of wine.
Okay, wine. Did they do anything special with their wine?
They could sweeten it with honey.
Okay, wine with honey.
And mix it with water.
Yeah, and water. Wine with honey and water. I am not being a purist here. We're not only limiting ourselves to 3 words, but we're trying to keep it just bullet point notes to ourselves. Okay, that's something that.
You could do honey / water.
Well, it's okay. We're not worried about it.
Let's say at.
What else? What else? Tell me another thing about kinds of food that Romans ate. From that first page, front and back.
I can't think. My allergies are sparking up. I can't.
Asparagus. Ooh. Here, I'm going to help you guys out for time's sake.
Half of the back of the first page is cut off, so I can't read it.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh.
it's cut off a little
Oh, I see that, I'm sorry. Well, it's mostly about the pottery, and remember, we chose not to write about utensils, so that's okay. But I'm checking out that thing in the bottom, the songbird surprise. Oh, I find that very interesting. Songbirds
Surprise.
It kinda looks like.
with quail eggs.
Ooh.
Doesn't want that. I'm hungry already.
I will take chicken wings.
It also appears to me from that second page that they're eating a lot of olives, grapes, figs.
Stuffed dates.
Stuffed dates, ooh.
That's on the second page though. It is.
Oh, is that on the,
So
Yeah.
that still goes with it.
oh, okay. Well, no, we're only limiting ourselves to the first page, front and back. What else do we know about their
Somebody already
foods?
say asparagus.
What?
Did somebody already say asparagus?
Asparagus. You know, so I find this really funny, but no one else ever does. The Emperor Augustus had a saying, one of his favorite sayings was quick as boiled asparagus.
What?
Apparently asparagus boils really fast. I steam mine.
Great.
All right, so
I usually steam mine too.
Yeah.
for time's sake, I want everybody look at me and just really understand what I'm saying. For time's sake, we are going through this quickly. If you, and you're going to do this again next time, okay, and do more of this on your own. If I were you at home and I had no clock ticking over my shoulder, I would just leisurely go through this and think about the food and decide what I'd like to write down, okay? I'm rushing you through it because of time constraints, all right? But does everyone understand what I just did? We picked kinds of food as one of our paragraphs, and I just looked at our first source, and I just found some stuff about kinds of food, and I jotted it down. Great, done. Do I have to have all 5 points? No, I don't. It's fine. Now, the other thing I said was dinner parties. So, and that can mean anything having to do with having a meal, all right? Doesn't have to be a party, but dining. Let's see if I can see anything in source 1. It says at the top, after a day's work, they went home for the main meal of the day, the dinner. Usually started at 2 or 3 in the afternoon, was eaten over several hours. Are you kidding me? Dinner lasted
Yeah,
several
geez.
hours?
Several hours. What?
Oh, that's interesting. I gotta write that down. It says there would frequently be entertainment between the courses, including clowns, dancers, and poetry readings. I think we should all start that in our own homes. We should have entertainment during dinner.
Wow.
You could take turns in your family being
Poets.
entertainment. That's interesting.
I'm assuming this is like at the big dinner parties, not at like every single dinner.
No, no.
Yeah.
Clowns, poetry. Like it. Ooh, people dressed for dinner in an elegant Greek robe called a synthesis.
Nice.
Wore Greek robes. I'm not gonna worry about the word synthesis. Wore Greek robes. Awesome. And they ate on reclining on large couches.
What?
We so need to do.
Yeah. Our etiquette
Why
days
are we eating this
sitting
way?
at a table.
I
in a
can't eat
terrible
like
chair.
this.
Reclined on couches.
Well, their couches, weren't they just like little cushions on the floor?
No,
Usually
that
they
was
were
Israel.
raised. They had actual platforms.
That was
Um,
Israel.
And,
Alex,
but-
move your head, Alice can't see.
Yeah, Alex, move your head.
maybe you could just scoot your chair over a couple of inches there. And that would help.
Here, I'll go right here.
So, in the Gospels, when the lady comes and she breaks the jar of perfume over Jesus' feet and wipes them with her hair while he's at dinner, and you kind of get this picture that she's crawling around on the floor under the table. She's not. He's reclining on a couch with his head towards the food and his feet back behind him. Does that make sense? Kind of? So his feet are just sticking out there. She's not crawling around like rubbing
Eat
a...
like that and not spill food all over the couch.
I don't know.
Do they have like little trays?
Oh, here. Romans did not use forks.
What?
No forks.
No forks.
That's random.
Hello?
Hands. Okay, so maybe that helped because you're just, I know those songbirds could get kind of messy, I suppose, but you know, figs and dates and things.
Hello?
Hey,
Where's EJ?
hey, we're recording for you. Oh, battery is running low. Crud. All right.
She was when we go get coffee.
Coffee.
Yeah.
12 minutes remaining.
EJ.
All right, some of this is going to be missing. Okay, so because of time, I'm going to decide I've got enough information.
Good.
I noticed the back was mostly about kinds of food anyway, more than dinner parties, but this is enough. Now, source number 2, second page. We're going to do the same thing.
Oh wow, this is fun.
I'm glad you feel that way. All the oh no's that came out when we were writing
My
stuff.
allergies
Okay,
are-
so does everybody understand? Second page,
Yes.
front and back. Anything we see about kinds of food these people were eating.
Ooh, shellfish, sardines, and eggs.
Ooh, shellfish, sardines, and eggs.
No. This course was followed by a drink of
Oh, wait a
wholesome
minute, wait a minute. I
wine
heard you say
sweetened.
course. Are there courses?
3 courses.
Oh, we really need to do this. Okay, 3 courses.
Yeah, where are we living?
Where are you, Ethan? Where are you,
Wait,
Ethan?
you-
Oh, bottom left-hand corner, the menu.
Oh.
Dinner came in 3 courses. I'm gonna put course 1, C1.
Ooh, the first one was appetizers.
Shellfish, sardines, eggs. There were other things, but I can't put everything. I'm only writing 1 paragraph.
Ooh, radishes too. Nice.
Awesome.
Mushrooms and oysters.
Main course. That would be course 2, right?
Meat,
Ooh,
fish, and poultry.
with vegetables and sauces. You know, we usually call poultry meat now. I mean, fish. I've never understood why fish isn't counted as meat. It's kind of weird, but fish, meat, vegetables. We'll call that course 2. Course 3. Course 3. Fruit, nuts, and honey cakes. Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. Fruit, nuts, honey cakes.
Oh, don't forget the stuffed dates.
Oh, yeah. Where were the stuffed dates?
They're on the back of this.
Oh, okay.
Did we put stuff dates